Feeling undeserving of your success even though you put in the work? Let's talk about imposter syndrome. Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Elia. I'm a mindset coach. I talk candidly about my experiences as well as share tips to encourage growth and healing and uplift anyone who may struggle with feeling seen. Imposter syndrome. So it's something we've all heard of. At least I hope we've all heard of. We might not have. You may not use those words, but I would bet it's something we've all experienced. In a nutshell, imposter syndrome is feeling like you don't belong or like you're a fraud or that you don't deserve the good things, the accomplishments, the recognition, the accolades, the success, whatever word you want to put there. It's just feeling like you don't deserve it. And again, it's a very common thing. I think everybody at some point struggles with imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome really says a lot about how you feel about yourself deep down within. And I always like to humanize this stuff, right? Because it's not just like you're the only one going through it. I have gone through it. I still have to navigate imposter syndrome sometimes. I'm human. The work never ends. That's the point of all of this. So I want to give a couple of examples of what that's looked like in my life at points. Probably about 7 years ago, I got this like really cushy corporate job. I was working for this big multinational distributor. I was on the product team and I had a lot of say in what came to market. So I'd be in these meetings with, first and foremost, day one, I was sitting there like, how'd I get this job? Blew my mind. And it's not even that I so much consciously believed that I was unqualified. I knew I could do it. It's just, I also, somewhere deep down inside, was just like, what part of me really did this? I had to figure that out, or I had to work that out. So nevertheless, I would be in these meetings with product managers, regional bosses, global heads, whatever series of words they wanted to put as their titles. And they would be asking for things and talking about things. And I just felt so overwhelmed. They needed me to do things. I'm like, I never did this before. I wasn't doing this at my last job. You need me to do what? When? By how quickly? Like now? Fam, I chill. All right. Let's not even get started on the pivot tables. Because at that point in my life, I ain't had nothing for no pivot tables. But anywho, I was in this environment that I felt like I didn't belong in, and not because I felt like I couldn't do the work, but because I just didn't understand how what I actually did. And I had really worked for this. I had put on the interviews. I like I didn't get there by accident. I didn't lie in my interview. But it's just like I couldn't figure out how I got there. And that was starting to take a toll on me mentally and emotionally. And I had a lot going on outside of the job too at that point. So it was just like a really unhealthy time in my life. But what that started to look like is I would actually start to hide out at work in the boardrooms. And thankfully I could get away with it because, again, it was a super corporate job. Half the time nobody was in the office. My boss at one point moved to China. Well, nobody really looking for me. If they was looking for me, Outlook Outlook was the thing. So that wound up not working out. I wound up actually taking medical leave. I had a nervous breakdown essentially and just never went back to the job. Again, a lot going on at that point in my life. Another example is a few years ago, I'd started a mobile home flipping business. And that was a wild time. But what wound up happening through that business is obviously I got to buy and sell stuff. I got to talk to contractors, vendors, etc., park managers, all these people. And I'd be in these showings, be in these meetings. I'm just sitting here like, how did I get here? And again, I really put in the work. I didn't get there by accident. I chose to start the business. I didn't know anything about mobile home investing before. It was ground up. So it's not like I didn't put in the work, but I'd be in these meetings with park managers, with private equity folks, with park owners, with fund managers. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of assets, millions of dollars of assets, all of this super big stuff. And I was just like, ah. I remember I'd do interviews and teach lessons and stuff, I just be like, ah, me, this guy. And underneath it all, there was this sense of not feeling good enough or feeling like a fraud, which kind of translated into feeling undeserving of the things that I had worked so hard to create, accomplish, achieve. And that was really, really hard for me to navigate. I always ask myself, do I deserve this? Because what am I gonna do? Work harder? Like, I can only do so much, but that's what it would make me want to do. But at the same time, what would actually also happen is this poor regulating mechanism of self-sabotaging, that pesky little thing, where at some point when things were really going well, I would get this urge to take my foot off the gas. Because the thing with increased success is increased responsibility. You got to deal with more the more you get. So some part of me was like, well, if we get less, we have to deal with less, which there's some vague truth in, but that's really not the truth I wanted to live in. So I had to come up with a way to navigate that. So I'm going to share a couple tips that I use that I hope will also help you on your journey. First, I started to take inventory of the accomplishments, the skills, the traits, all of the things that actually propelled me to that space, that environment, that goal, that milestone. What got me here? What did I do to get here? I had to remind myself that the resume was long. I was doing things that people around me weren't doing, and that's not to brag. That's just, hey, I got it, right? Sometimes you got to tell yourself, I can do this because I've done X, Y, and Z, and I had to figure out how to do those things. And then after that, I started to take inventory of the skills, traits, habits, whatever that I felt that I needed in order to attain and sustain a greater level of success, right? Those are the things that I felt like I lacked. I had to dive into that pool of lack and not live in it, but I did have to visit it and really kind of get cozy and see where it took me, because where that pool took me was really getting a clear sense of how I felt about myself underneath my conscious mind, like subconsciously, what's going on in here? What beliefs do I have? Have I incorporated? Have I internalized that are informing how I show up in these spaces that I've worked to be in? That's where the real work is done. And then after that, what I would do, because I like to prioritize, I'm a very intentional person most of the time. A lot doesn't really happen by accident with me. And that's not to say I don't make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. It's just I like to be intentional about what I do, because limited energy, limited time, I can't do everything at once. So I would then rank those skills or habits or traits that I needed in order of most pressing, and then put together a plan to pull in those resources, learn those skills, embody those traits, change the habits, whatever it may be, so that I could move forward toward the goal and also feel a bit more deserving along the way, because I got to see every step of the work I did and reminded myself of the work I did. And then the most important part is that I took action. You got to take action. We can sit here and plan all day, write out these lists and all of this, but none of it matters if we don't take action. So I hope in your life, in your walk, that helps a bit. And I want to leave you with a reflective question. And that's, what core beliefs about yourself do you need to shed in order to feel deserving of your success? Think about it.